here with Amanda, Milborne, Ireland. Thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate it. So let me ask, being born and raised in real estate, was it something you always wanted to do?
That's a great question, Cara. It probably would change depending on how old I was when you asked me the question. I grew up in sales offices, and a lot of my first jobs were stuffing brochures or giving tours of model suites, cold calling people and answering the phone. But it wasn't something that I decided to study in university or actively pursued actually until I got my first job. So I went to university and on a rowing scholarship and studied advertising, which was kind of like a way to study business without studying business, without all the math. But it wasn't until I actually got a job in advertising and worked in it for 6 months where I realized that I was very bored, and I had all of this knowledge and experience in a totally different industry that would help elevate the position I was in right away. Yeah. So I jumped ship from advertising and took my marketing knowledge, but was very happy to join sort of a sales group in the sales process.
Amazing. And now you're working on more of a development side, and you had gone to school for that as well, correct?
Yeah, I went back to school after working in the brokerage business for a number of years. I went back to school and got my master's in real estate development. There's a wonderful program out of Columbia University where you really study the entire development process from start to finish, and I was really bitten by the development bug working for sales and selling a lot of condominiums. So now I'm able to sort of use both hats and bring both parts of the information and knowledge together.
Which I think makes you so valuable as well, because you see it on different levels and different angles than a lot of other people would, right? If they're just going into the development side, they don't have the knowledge of the sales side like you have.
Yeah, one of the unique positions in the way that I look at real estate and development is sort of, one of the biggest differences is sort of underwriting a project and how do you make the numbers work on paper before you actually go to sale and tender it. So making sure that you're a little conservative when you're looking at a project just on the back of the envelope or on paper before you actually put pen to paper and develop that product and bring it to sale. And
it's funny because you speak about being born and raised in real estate and sales offices and cold calling, and I laugh because we've talked about this so many times. It's essentially what I did on a smaller scale in Winnipeg, and at the time you're so excited when you're young because anything, it's cool to go to work with dad. It's cool to be here and be a part of something. And most people now that come in, they don't want to do those things. They don't want to do cold calls. They don't want to stuff brochures. But I really do feel, and I was talking with someone else on another level with this, is it's really what makes you grow and what makes you understand. You understand all legs of the business, right? You started from the bottom and worked your way up, and I think that's so important.
I totally agree. I think also when it comes to marketing, there's a lot of rote tasks in marketing that other people see as pretty boring.
Yeah.
Stuffing brochures, it takes time. You get paper cuts. It's you miss a page. I remember going floor plans. It was 80 floor plans for a project. So we're making a brochure with every single
floor plan. A line.
Assembly line. Yeah. It's just, it's endless. So but being able to get your head down, seeing the positive for it, putting in a hard day's work, it was really great to build, and you learn a lot as sort of coming up through the ranks, and you're exposed to conversations and opportunities that you wouldn't normally see, and it's great through the sales process.
That's awesome. So I guess now at this stage, what does a typical day in the life of you look like?
Oh, well, with COVID, I'm not leaving the house very much, but I'm hoping that will change. We're, gearing up to be back in the office soon. And a typical day has a lot of different meetings in it. I spend a check-in at the beginning of the day, getting my team focused and making sure everybody knows their tasks. Lots of planning and visualizing with architects and interior designers to work on floor plans. Lots of looking at sites to unlock their value and sort of bring them next up to market, and it's fun.
That's exciting, and I guess now you're doing a lot of that via Zoom or Teams.
Yeah, a lot of online platforms right now, but I'm excited to get back in person collaboration. I think that one of the unique parts of real estate, and especially in the development business, is getting, I like to say it's not a good meeting until someone has a bad idea.
Yeah.
So I like being in one room where that flow and that collaboration happens so much easier in a room as opposed to on a screen.
And I guess working where somewhere like SmartCentres, you're probably seeing so many different things because they're not only looking at residential, but they're looking at the commercial end of it as well.
Yeah, so as a history as a commercial shopping center developer, You know, all of our sites have a lot of retail on them, and now as we're going through the intensification process to add residential, it's amazing how, you know, a lot of what you look for as a draw for some of your standalone buildings are actually built into our communities from the start.
It's awesome. It's very unique. I mean, I'm sure it's like every day is different.
Every day is different. You know, even just geography. We have properties all over Ontario, all over the GTA, all over Canada. So it's really interesting, even just to get into the different markets.
And so what's something that you need to remind yourself on a day-to-day when you kind of start work?
Ooh, I would say two things. One, process. I have to remind myself to spell check because I'm a horrible speller. Or so in presentations, even in emails to important stakeholders, like I spell check.
Do you know there's a system called Grammarly, I think it's called? Okay. Have you gotten it?
I haven't.
My husband uses it because he's also really horrible. I'm no better. And it automatically highlights everything and suggests the change. So,
I like that. Okay.
Little trick.
I will double check. The other one is drink water.
Yeah.
You know, I have small children, so I drink a lot of coffee. I don't have to remind myself of that, but making sure that I'm taking breaks, standing up, especially at home, and not only drinking coffee.
Well, and I think when you get, the one thing I've noticed with working from home and with Zoom is you actually forget to take time between your, I mean, for me at least, between your Zoom meetings. So before, between meetings, you'd have a drive there back and forth, but now you don't. So literally sometimes I literally go from Zoom to Zoom to Zoom that I forget to go to the bathroom. Yeah. I forget to eat. Like I don't have time to do anything. So I'll like run to the bathroom while I'm on a Zoom and hope to God it stays muted. Like, you know, so, but you just get so, you know, you really have to remind yourself that you still need to take those breaks. But I found that balance very difficult.
It was really difficult. One of the best tips I got actually was from my husband at the beginning. His company, they set a policy, so for 30-minute meetings and for hour meetings, you just shorten the meeting request by 5 minutes. So 25 minutes and 55 minutes. And all of a sudden, everybody in the company has built-in time to just meet their needs between meetings. And it's a small thing, but it made a huge difference.
That's awesome.
So I've been trying to adjust and send out meetings for 55 minutes as opposed to 60.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. And I think now I've been trying to do that too, where I'll do the same thing. I'll leave like a 10, 15-minute gap between so that I have the time to go to the bathroom or grab a water or grab something to eat. So, yeah. Or half the time you will know if my video is off, I'm probably eating while we're in a meeting. So, you know, speaking of childhood, because I know we both grew up in real estate, what is something that you learned from your childhood that kind of rings true to you today?
Probably the value of hard work. You know, something that both my parents really ingrained into myself and also my siblings. I'm the oldest of 7 children, that we all had to work growing up, whether it was in sales offices or having newspaper routes or babysitting or working at coffee shops. Like we all had a job.
Yeah.
From the age of 12, it didn't matter. It was something that everybody had to be working, and I see that, the value of hard work. I see it in everybody, and it's something that I will definitely replicate with my kids.
I think it's so important, and I think a lot of people nowadays kind of forget what that means. I mean, you know, we've been hiring right now, and I can't tell you how many people come to an interview and, you know, they want to make, you know, a certain amount of money, but they don't want to really put in the work for it. And I think that sometimes those values have kind of been, I wouldn't say lost, but forgotten about.
Yeah.
And I think it truly is. It is so important. And I mean, I'm going to touch on the seven kids because there's not a lot of people that can say that.
That's true.
I mean, that must have been work in itself. You know, growing up with your siblings and you're quite close. You know, how was that working in the family company and all kind of at different stages in your lives working together?
You know, it was fun. You know, the greatest thing about my family is that we all got along really well, and because we were all close in age, it was a really tight-knit group. So we were able to communicate well and solve problems. It was probably one of my biggest, you know, learning curves in terms of leading a team and, how do you coordinate and you know, solve disagreements and motivate people who are maybe not motivated to do something and or manipulate them, but you know, not. I'll say manipulate to my siblings, not manipulate other people.
Yeah.
But,
and you're the eldest.
I'm the oldest. Yeah.
Okay, that's so funny. I mean, listen, we've all done it. I manipulated my sister all the time. So, and you know. As a busy working mom, what does an ideal day off look like for you, if you even get a day off? Would be the best question.
Yeah, you know, I'm fortunate in that I do get days off, which is great, and probably the best way I want to spend it is with my husband, with my kids, with my family. I love to be active, be outdoors. So these days, you know, anything we do, we've been taking advantage of active TO and doing a lot of biking actually on the road closures, which has been really fun. My son, who's 7, was very excited because he conquered Pottery Road. He biked down the Pottery Road hill, which is a pretty big one.
It's a steep hill, yeah. That's awesome. Good for him.
I was really proud. He suggested it, and so yeah, we've been doing a lot of biking, and yeah, it's fun to be outside.
I think it's there's so many things about the pandemic and about COVID that, obviously haven't been great, and a lot of people have been very negatively affected. However, I think there's been so many positives as well. It's kind of taught us to spend more time with family. I'll say for myself, I've never seen my husband as much as I've seen my husband as of recently, and it really forced me to have that balance that I struggled with a lot, working and taking time for myself as well. So I am grateful for those things. And, even the active TO, like having, roads where you can go with your family and bike, I think it's so important.
Absolutely. I think it's something that we really take for granted in the city. Toronto has so many great green spaces, and I love when they can close down the roads and get people out, and especially on the bike lanes. It's just great. And seeing it in new developments too, as we sort of integrate bike lanes into new road patterns, and that's such a great, I think that the biking infrastructure is next in terms of what's coming for Toronto.
And I think it makes sense. I mean, we are a big city, right? In any other place you go in any other countries, bikes are very, very common. A lot of people don't own a car. They rely on biking and transit as the most important. And I think, it's taken Toronto a little while to get there, but it's, from what they're instilling now, I think we will eventually get there, and I think it's needed at this stage of where our city is going.
Absolutely, and it's nice to see sort of the focus on the car being removed, especially if you look at some of the new developments that are coming out, and the way we're thinking about and planning the way that people move around the city, but also within their little nodes in the city, sort of the city within the city.
Yeah. So if you had the chance to start your career over, is there anything that you would do differently? Putting you on the spot.
Yeah, or like advice I'd give my, starting out self, probably take more risks. Yeah. Calculated risks, of course, but putting myself out there, maybe just being a little more vocal in the early days of my career. I think I was very hesitant at the beginning of my career to make sure I really had confidence and understood a concept fully before either speaking up or asking more questions about it. And that's something that I think that, at the beginning of your career, you have the opportunity, and you should never be afraid to ask questions. Like, the more you can ask and the more you can learn, especially from people who really know what they're talking about, the better.
I always say there's never a stupid question, right? Like, it's always good. And I think I'm probably, with you, even when I started working with you, was probably the most annoying person, because I always asked way too many questions. But I've been like that since I was a child. My parents would say, "No, Cara," and I'd say, "Why?" "Because I said so." "But why do you say so?" Like, I've been the worst, but I've always been like that, because I think it's, I've grown so much because I've asked so many questions, and you're right, I think it's extremely important. And a lot of people just don't, they're uncomfortable doing it. They don't want to overstep, they don't want to look, stupid. For some people, they think that. And I think for a lot of, especially women in real estate, we're in a male-dominated industry. You should never feel that way. And I think we all kind of support each other. And it's so funny because I have asked stupid questions. I mean, honestly, I really have.
Actually, I remember, I was just thinking back to you in our Nicholas days.
Yeah.
I actually remember one of the things that impressed me the most about you was how you were never afraid to ask questions. And then but they weren't stupid. They were really they were very thoughtful questions, especially as someone who was just getting into real estate. Like, you really wanted to dig in and understand the reasons why we gave an answer, as opposed to just because it was the status quo.
And it's funny because now it's been great. When I was a kid, it really didn't help me. I was always in trouble at school. I was put in the detention center because I wouldn't stop talking and asking questions. And the funny thing is, though, now I'm so grateful that I did, because I've obviously gotten to where I have, and I haven't been fearful of speaking up. And that's always something I always say to people is, don't be scared to speak up. Come out of your shell, because, if you don't respect yourself, no one's going to respect you.
Yeah. No, and it's something a lot of people have difficulty with early in their careers.
And
I think it boils down to confidence for most people.
So, speaking in that term, who would you say has been your greatest inspiration or greatest inspirer?
Right now, it's my family, for sure. They inspire me every day, especially in the current environment. My kids navigating online learning right now with zero social interaction with their friends, and they just sign on and keep doing it with a smile. Yeah.
Must be challenging in days when you have meetings and you and your husband are both working from home, right?
Yeah, it's definitely been a challenge. There's been highs and lows, but again, we're grateful for all the time together, and it's not going to last forever, so that's great.
That's awesome. That's great. And so what would you say is your best advice to someone who's starting out, in the development industry and in real estate?
Probably not being afraid to ask those questions. Not being afraid to reach out to people to have introductory meetings or get involved or network in ways that may be intimidating at the moment, because I think that that's something that a lot of people struggle with. How do you get in front of people? How do you have conversations? And it takes work. You either have to approach people blind, either on LinkedIn or through email or on calls, and you don't always get lucky. Sometimes you have to ask friends for referrals or communication. I try to always be very generous with my time if I get a request from a student or someone who's starting out, but it always helps if it comes from somebody who I know. I'm always a little bit more willing to give up some 15 minutes or 30 minutes of time. But I find, not being afraid to have those conversations or reaching out to people, because it's amazing the connections you can make and that will stay with you.
And I think in any, real estate especially, but really any career in any industry, is relationships are so important. Right? And having those conversations and being able to go into a room. And I still remember when I first started, we laugh about it, when I started at Nicholas, came from Winnipeg. So for us, the sales is very slow, very quiet. And then I had just moved here the night before, showed up the next day, and I'm in a room with like 500 agents, I think it was. And it was a complete culture shock. But I had to let myself out of my comfort zone, right? And I had to just, buckle up and get ready and go and start conversations and introduce myself. And it's very, very intimidating. I'm a very outgoing personality, I always have been. So I am a bit more comfortable, but for a lot of people, that's extremely intimidating for them.
It was something didn't come naturally to me at all. And, despite being involved in real estate and having the access, it was something I really had to work on and train myself, because I'm not as naturally extroverted.
What's some advice that you could give to someone who's first starting out in development and in the real estate industry?
Probably to not be afraid to ask questions and take risks at the beginning of your career. I think it's something that I was a little more hesitant with, reaching out to people for information or for access. It takes a confidence to get to that place, but I think it's something that anybody starting out should, if they have a gap in their knowledge or an area that they want to learn more, reach out to people to help fill that knowledge gap. And if you can utilize your network to facilitate some introductions, that helps. But not being afraid to craft very thoughtful, sort of an elevator pitch about yourself, and take a couple of risks to get in front of people. But
and I think come out of your comfort zone in a sense too, right? Yes. It's difficult and it's so intimidating, but I think it shows a lot too for a certain employer or for someone who's looking to hire, if you're making that initiative and you're kind of coming out of your comfort zone and you're following up to try to speak to them, whether it's if someone's reaching out to you to work with you or reaching out to you just for advice or a mentorship. I think it's so important.
Absolutely. The thing to remember is just to be very respectful of people's time, especially when you're starting out, and because I find that the people who craft very well very thoughtful asks for those things with a very respectful request in terms of a time outlay, it's, you're guaranteed to get a much better result.
For sure. So then, speaking of advice, what would you say is the best advice you've ever received?
The best advice I've ever received is probably to be present. So to be present in every moment. And I think that that's something, especially in the Zoom environment, is really difficult. That's something that I struggled with. So at the beginning, it's something that when you're in a meeting or you're involved in something, like, try not to multitask. And I think it's something that, in real estate we struggle with, but as women we also struggle with. And it's something that it's been very good advice, sort of, focus on one thing at a time. Not that multitasking doesn't happen or can't happen, but try to have your 90% of your attention on that one item, to actually live it and not be thinking about the next thing you have to do or the things you didn't get to yet.
It's so funny you say that, because that is, I would say, probably my biggest challenge with Zoom or with Teams or being on any sort of, video conference meeting is your computer is right in front of you. So I'm seeing my emails and I'm seeing them pile up, and I'm very, I like to get to things very quickly. And it's really funny because in the beginning I was very present, I really focused. Then I went on this downward spiral of having a very hard time doing it. And I really had to zone in on, and hone in on, okay, you need to get to that after, because I think I'm multitasking, but really I'm not paying attention.
Yeah.
And then your clients are catching on, or they're like, hey, Cara, what do you think? And you're like, wait a second, I don't know what I think, because I did not hear the question. So I think it is really difficult, though, because I think it's just like a day-to-day, our lives are all about multitasking. I mean, you're a mom. I'm sure you're multitasking being a mom while working. And we're so used to juggling so many things that it's difficult to actually be present and focus on that one thing at one time. Mm-hmm. So for my final signature question, if you had the opportunity to drink champagne with anyone, who would it be and why?
I was thinking about this question. I think my answer is Oprah.
That's a good one.
Based on, I think that she is somebody who's had a tremendous rise with her brand and herself, and would be someone who would be awesome to drink with and have a drink and pick her brain. And
I mean, she's done so much for everything,
and continues to. It's amazing how the Oprah brand has tremendous value.
And I mean, it's not just value. She's also done so much with her brand as well, like good things too. She's, all the schools that she's built, and, she's been so heavily involved in so many different charities that I think is so important, because for a lot of people, they get successful, but you have to remember there's other people that need your help. And I think truly when you become to a level like that, it is almost our job or a role to help others who aren't as fortunate.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most successful things she's been able to do, is really amplify the voices around her.
Yeah.
For the causes that really matter to her.
It's amazing. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mia, do you want to?
I just don't want to do it because I'm in the box and I don't want to make noise.
We, in true Hirsch & Associates fashion, got little custom things done.
Oh my gosh, you guys are so sweet.
So this is a branded champagne.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much.
Thank
Cheers.
you. I think on everything I have to say that my career started working with you. So and I'm not going to cry, so I'm going to keep this short, but honestly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, because I don't think I would be where I am today if it weren't for working with you.
Well, you have tremendous energy and effort, Cara. This is great.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you so much for being a part of it.
Oh, this is great.